Today is Saturday, and ordinarily I'd be doing a group ride outside, but with the threat of rain in the forecast, I called an audible last night and I changed my schedule. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis the Cycling Greek. So what exactly is that schedule change? Well, in my case, instead of doing my leg workouts, squats, deadlifts, etc. on Sunday, I did it on Friday night. Since this was the fourth week of my 4-week block, I limited it to squats and I focused on a lot of repetitions. Ordinarily with my squats, I would do sets of 4 after I warmed up and pretty much go as heavy as I could. Let's now talk about this race. Actually, this is a race series, a tiny race series. You have a race starting at the top of the hour and then next one starting every 15 minutes thereafter until you hit the 4 races. And usually they last about 7 to 10 minutes. I had no idea how I was going to fare because of the squats I did last night until I started this first race. Even though the leg work I did last night did not feel debilitating to me as I was riding, I could tell I was feeling a bit labored. Especially when I got to this climb. Even though I had a good warm-up, I figured this first race I'm going to pay a little bit and that'll help me warm up for the next races that'll follow. In this race we had 60 starters and 57 finishers. My usual goal is to finish in the top half. Now you may be thinking, you can shoot for a better goal than that. Well, this is a good time, probably because I have a lot of new viewers, to tell you a little bit about myself. I am 69 and I've been subject to AFib for about 9 years now. My last AFib attack was in September, a couple of months ago. I have gotten some good results in the past when I was in the Cat C category, but now this is a new category system set up, and I think it's pretty cool, mostly because it seems to put people in the right categorizations. This race category is the 260 to 400 score range, and I'm right around 360. If you are familiar with my channel, you know that I don't have a lot of fast twitch fibers. Doing this type of race is going to be a challenge to me, but it's also what I need. In such a short race like this, and being in the company of strong riders like I am, I'm going to be riding around anywhere between sweet spot and above threshold. So basically, I have to manage my lactate processing. It's partly going to be done by managing my position and working with the flow of this algorithm. I say partly because the other part's going to be what the other riders are going to be doing. And if they're going hard, well, that's going to suck for me. With a kilometer to go and going up that climb, yes, it is sucking. We are making our final run in. Ordinarily, I like to be toward the top 25%, top 30% of the pack. But on a consistent basis, I have not been able to do it in this race. It is half a kilometer to go. We are still climbing and I have an arrow power-up that I just hit. Others have hit their arrow too. As my power-up is just about done, I stand, but unfortunately not for that long. I do what I can and I come in 28th out of 57, just got into the top 50%. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, race number 2. This is the Dolphin Crit course. I love the Dolphin Crit course. Now, this is run in a direction that usually I don't go, but this is the easier direction, so I kind of figure, hey, I should do pretty good. However, when I started, that's when I really realized the effects of the squats that I did last night. I should really be firing on all cylinders because of that first race, but I'm not, and I think everyone else is. I never really felt control in this race. I always felt like I was kind of catching up and able to catch my breath just a little bit sometimes. I did notice that at the end of each lap, we would then go into the roller section, and that's where I would put my power into the uphill and then relax on the downhill and do that all the way through in order to hopefully save my legs a little bit. And then we'd have maybe just a little bit downhill. We'd hit that cobbled climb that goes in the other direction, but now it's a cobbled downhill. And after that, the pack seems to slow up just a bit. That's where I was able to momentarily catch my breath. In this race, we had 61 riders, which meant that I had to get to 30th or better to get in the top half. Despite what I said earlier, I seem to be doing a little better job with keeping my position toward the front, at least a little more often. And that's actually only in the first 2 laps. On the third lap, I had a hard time just hanging on. I've got some ugly feats going on right now negotiating these rollers, but that is keeping me at the front. As we leave these rollers, I'm trying to keep my power up, but I've lost a lot of positions. I'm now back around 38th, 40th. On the rollers, I was in the teens. I think this is my second or third Zwift race in this off-season. I include Zwift racing in my off-season for a variety of reasons. I also include VO2 max work once a week. Now you may be asking yourself, why are you doing so much high-intensity work in your off-season? Well, the main reason is, actually there's a few reasons. So the first one is that I am old. If I stop doing upper intensity work for 3 months, then my upper end is going to basically die out. And it's going to take a while to ramp up. How long will it take to ramp up? Well, if I was a junior, it'd probably take like 2-3 weeks. But being 69, it'll take, I'll say 4 to 6 weeks just to get to a reasonable level. Now, there are also health reasons to do this type of work, and I'll be talking about that in the next race. So for this race, we're now about 1.5 kilometers from the finish. And I'm about 38th, 39th, 40th position, and I should be moving up, but I can't move up because basically I'm pegged out right now. The only power-up they allow in this race is a ghost power-up, and that's not going to do me any good. You can see by the insert map in the upper right-hand corner, we are stretched out and there are gaps. We have 0.5 kilometer to go, and I need to pass some people. I'm too far away from top half. Looking at the graphics on the right, I have 2 people behind me and then another 9 seconds back of that. I have more ugly face happening as I'm passing more people. There's the finish. Man, that hurt. 40th place out of 56 finishers, not the top half. We are now on race number 3. I'm doing a little experimenting here. At race 1, I had it at 2.5 times the speed. Race 2 was 3 times the speed, and this one is 3 1/4. If you look at the little insert map, you'll see people being spit out the back. We have 64 riders in this race. Interestingly, while the Dolphin course in race 2 is my favorite crit course, La Guardia in this race is my least favorite. I started off a little stronger in this race than I had in the other 2. Reason being, I didn't want to put myself in deficit. Now, while I really had a hard time in race 2, I was having a little bit easier time in race 3. I don't think it was because that my body was a little slower in warming up, though, hello, I'm 69, that's certainly viable. I think the pack, on the whole, was a little tired. Now let's talk about why incorporating high-intensity workouts in your weekly training program is beneficial to your health. In this case, I'm including VO2 max type of workouts, as opposed to doing 30-30s, 40-20s, and the like. I'll be talking about the positive effects of those in the next race. To give you the Reader's Digest version, having a higher VO2 max is associated with having a increased longevity. Not only longevity, but a functional longevity. The better chance you have at keeping certain metabolic diseases such as diabetes at bay. When you compare a group of people that have kidney disease against a group that doesn't, the group that does has a 500% greater chance of dying within the next 10 years compared to the group that doesn't. Same thing with VO2 max. When you compare a group with very poor VO2 max against a group with elite level, then that's 500%. Now, the good thing is, just going from couch potato to just below average, you cut that death rate in half. It's only 250%. Still large, but much less. Bottom line, at least for us here, if you're in this race, you're probably doing pretty good. All right, back to the race. We have about 1 kilometer to go, and I'm actually sitting nice and pretty in this race course that I don't really like that much. Looking at the insert map, we have a split in the pack, and that split is growing. We still have about 35 or so in this pack, but at least that's fewer people I have to contend with. It's now a 0.5 kilometer to go. I just want to stay in the middle of the pack so they can carry me toward the line so I can stay connected for as long as I can, and that is starting to not happen. We're now split up. I'm now toward the back. I'm just trying to pass somebody. I may have gotten him, I don't know, but 28th, top half. Finally, race number 4. Now this one I'm doing at 3.5 times speed. So let me know in the comments below which speed level that you like. Since starting off stronger in the last race worked nicely for me, I thought I'd do the same thing now. However, I felt something that was a little bit different. I felt that the squats that I did yesterday, they're coming to roost. This whole race was a struggle for me, so I had to figure out how I could stay connected and get the best finish that I could. Now, one of the things I didn't tell you that I was doing in the other races was I was focusing on my glutes, having the power for my for moving forward, so to speak, coming from my glutes and not from my quads. Reason being that I was saving my quads for when I needed them. That's the concept. One of the YouTube channels I subscribe to is Evoke Bike, and they had an interview with the glute doctor. And so I listened to what he said, and I started experimenting on the road with that, and it seemed to work for me. It's not second nature for me to pedal like that, and that's one of the things that I'm working on to become more adept at it, and so that I really don't have to think much about it. It seems to have helped in the previous races. We'll see how I do in this race with that concept. So now let's talk about the benefits of high-intensity training on your health in terms of producing a lot of lactate. Now this is where you do 30-30s or 40-20s or similar, as opposed to working on your VO2 max, which you're often going to do, let's say 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off, sets of 4, that type of thing. When you're doing HIIT training correctly, you're producing a lot of lactate, so much so that your muscles can't process it on its own and has to dump it out into the circulatory system. Well, it makes its way up to your head, and when it gets to the blood-brain barrier, it activates VEGF, vasoendothelial growth factor. This encourages the growth of little arterioles in the blood-brain barrier, so it brings nutrients in, takes the bad stuff out. I believe that the health of the blood-brain barrier correlates to the health of the brain in terms of dementia-related diseases. To the action on the screen, I have now been spit out of that group, and I am trying to catch up to them, which I'm not going to be able to catch up to them, but I'm trying to stay away from people that are chasing me. Okay, so back to the lactate. So now that's the blood-brain barrier, so now you have lactate going inside your brain, and again it's acting as a messaging molecule to activate BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That encourages the growth of new neurons and the repair of old neurons. The more neural growth that you have, the more you have the ability to adapt. Lastly, lactate acts as a fuel. It'll burn lactate before it burns glucose, so that means it spares glucose, and glucose is used to then help create glutathione peroxidase, a very powerful antioxidant. Okay, half a kilometer to go. I'm being chased by somebody 10 seconds back, and there's somebody right ahead of me about 2 seconds, 1 second. He's picking up the pace a bit because I'm sure he sees me coming. I catch him, I pass him. Now I'm concerned that he's just going to fly past me. It's right there. He doesn't. And I finished 42nd out of about 61 that finished, not in the top half. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. As always, remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.